This is Jason Saltzman of buildingthefantasy.com. Create, run, manage the best fantasy leagues possible with buildingthefantasy.com. Today's episode is commitment levels. What level of commitment does each type of league need? What type of commitment should you have as an owner in each league, or what type of commitment as a commissioner should you be ready or willing to take on, depending which league you want to run. So let's get right into it. If this is your first time watching, hit the subscribe below. You're going to get a ton of good content with buildingthefantasy.com. Also, make sure to give a like and comment. Maybe we can tailor-make some videos just for you based on the questions or comments that you have. I'd love to. Let's get right into it. So level of commitment, we're going to start with each type of league and really what you want out of your owners if you're an owner. But this does kind of give you a feel of the level of you need out of a commissioner by looking at these. So if you're just going to start on the left here with the redraft, you need your owners to make the draft. The commissioner needs to do a good job of letting the owners know when the draft is, sticking to that, letting them know how we're drafting, and all the details. Free agency and trades, hopefully your owners in a redraft league will participate in the free agency of trades, and then they set their lineup on time. That's probably the number one most important, is you need people setting your lineup. But you also need people, if you're not going to play the free agency game, you probably don't have a chance to win, and you're going to have guys on your team with on the DL or IR or however you look at that, because that's just what happens. So you need people participating in free agency. Trades is a little extra because now you're talking about communicating with other owners. Some owners love to trade, some owners don't. And then making the draft is also one of the top priorities of any owner in any league, because that's going to set your whole season up, and it's also going to set, is my heart in this or not? In this or not? Sometimes you don't draft your own team, and it's like, I didn't get the guys I wanted, they didn't fall my way, and you just never really feel a connection to that team or that league. That would be the redraft. Those are the minimums you want. I'd say number 4 in a redraft is some sort of communication option. Maybe people are chatting, and that adds a little to that. But really what the main 3 things that someone needs to be able to commit to is making the draft, making sure they participate weekly in the free agency, and then setting their lineup. In a keeper league, it's always, in any league you have, those are the most important things right off the bat. If they don't do those, if you don't have an owner committed to do those things, it's they should probably be playing daily fantasy or another, betting, maybe sports gambling or something, because they're not committed to playing a season fantasy long year commitment. So in a keeper league, it does take a little more because there's a minor off season. You have to be communicating on which, you have to decide, first of all, the owner has to understand the keeper process, so that takes a little extra. The owner has to decide which keepers are the best to keep, so that takes some extra strategy. The owner now has to look at what keepers were kept that are now not redraftable. That takes a little extra strategy. So now you ask a little more for your owners, but owners that should be in a keeper league, or that they should be people that want to do those things. That sounds exciting, and that's who you look for in a keeper league. And if you're one of those people that sounds exciting for, you should be looking to get into a keeper league. Communication's a little, I think a keeper league is just a little extra. It's a little more. And in most keeper or dynasty leagues that I'm in, there is somewhat of a sense of community or more communication from some of the owners. You can't get everyone in, but you never know who's reading or who's, sometimes you'll see someone randomly say something in the chat that normally doesn't say something, but they are reading and they're in there. They just don't communicate or don't talk very much. So it does add another level. It makes it a stronger league, in my opinion. Keeper strategy, like I mentioned, there is a little more rules with the keeper leagues, like I said. So that just takes a little more commitment on the owners and the commissioner to be good at communicating those things. And with buildingthefantasy.com, you get a lot of guidance and help on how to communicate rules and make things clean and neat and easy for everyone to understand. And then we'll move over to the right here, the dynasty, which is the biggest commitment, because not only do you have a commitment to a strategy of keepers and a few players in the future, but you really have, as a dynasty owner, a commitment to all your roster. You're generally keeping that whole roster or a good portion of it. And so not only do you have a commitment to making the draft and setting your lineup and communicating, it's now a major offseason and there's less turnover. So you have to be communicated with, hey, if my team it's a dynasty league. Your teams go through ebbs and flows and ups and downs. You might have 3 or 4 poor seasons that you really have to ride it through until your team finally turns the corner and is now in a playoff contender every year. There is the most rules in a dynasty league. It is a huge commitment to your roster drafted, and it's also a huge commitment to the other owners, because if you leave in a dynasty league and maybe your team isn't all that good, now that league has to go out and recruit an owner to take over maybe a team that hasn't been so hot. And that happens, and there, again, on buildingfantasy.com, there are ways to walk you through the process of incentivizing owners to not get to that point. And when you do lose owners, there's videos on how to recruit and get owners into your league. So in a redraft league, there is zero commitment to players' futures. In the keeper, there's a little bit of a commitment to certain players' futures. Maybe it's a 3-man keeper league, so you're going to keep 3 players. Maybe it's a 6-man keeper league, you're going to keep up to 6 players. But it's not your whole roster. In a dynasty league, 60, 70, all the way up to 100% of that roster is kept, and there's a long-term commitment to your players. This is more so on the commissioner side. You'll see that each redraft keeper in Dynasty, you have to set up the league, and you have to communicate that league setup to your owners in the recruiting process. It always helps if you have other owners or friends or people involved in that you already know that they're playing in the league, and they can help you get other owners and help you build the league a little bit. In your job in all these different setups to inform the league. Again, everything you see in the redraft is going to be echoed in the keeper and dynasty, so you need to enforce rules, and you also have to be on top of the payment, whether that's you handling it or putting someone in charge, or something like LeagueSafe or a treasurer. In the keeper league, you also have some more history tracking to do, because there is a history of your league going back. It's not a redraft every year. That's not only important for you, but your owners for fun to see some history and knowledge of the past. And there's a minor offseason you have to run. In the Dynasty, there's a major offseason you have to run, so you really have to be willing to do that in the offseason, as well as the history tracking in the Dynasty League. So these are different levels of commission that, if those sound, again, if these sound fun to you and excite you, that's the avenue you should go. And if you're tentative, or you think, I don't know, it sounds like too much work, then you shouldn't. Because it is some work, it's not a ton, and when you enjoy it, it's not work. It's just something you're willing to do, and put on that 2-week rookie draft, or get everyone together for 4 hours to put on that free agent draft in the off season, or making sure that you do your research to make the league the best that you can. That falls on the commission. That really on a redraft keeper or dynasty, that the research just gets more intense, or there's more dots to connect in a dynasty or a keeper league. And then depending how deep your redraft league is, there's some deep redraft leagues that also take some good amount of research and figuring your way out through to make it kind of a more exciting redraft league. So again, whatever appeals to you is the way you should go, and also just know beforehand that this is what is involved, and these are the type of owners. The last thing I like to say about a dynasty league, especially, and maybe a keeper league, but whenever I start a dynasty league, I am very upfront with the owners. So I maybe know 30 fantasy players, but I'm upfront with them and tell them it's more than just a fantasy league. There's more that goes on. You have to be willing to, after the year ends, to make your cuts and to be willing to open some trades and be there for the free agent draft and the rookie draft and be communicating. And it's more, and the people that are tentative or shy away from that, those are not the owners you want. And there's of course tentative people because they're not sure, but they still are, like, you could tell that they want to and they're excited. That's not the same. There's some people that really, you're upfront with them and they just turn it down, and that's fine. Even if you think they'd be a good fit, some people really don't want to put in that extra, and they don't help the league. And you want more people, the most people that you can that are willing, because then it turns maybe those 2 or 1 or 3 people on the fence into believers. It makes the league real strong. So that is my final say on how to go approach that, is be upfront with your owners on what it takes to be in the league, from just being a good fantasy player to really, this is more of a community type setting. So what to do next? Check out Owners Who and How video. That's going to go over who you should be looking for, kind of like what we were just talking about, and how to go about getting those owners, and also maybe some places to do some recruiting. Draft types, can be found in Fantasy League Basics, also some videos such as host sites or articles on payout structure, what's the difference between a dynasty and keeper league. You can also jump straight over to Sports Specifics. That has a ton of content on the sport that you want to see, whether it be a scoring system, how do you run a 2-quarterback league, how do you implement OPS versus slugging percentage, or should it be wins or quality starts, or should holds, what are the pros and cons to having holds in your baseball league, or 3-point percentage versus 3-pointers made. It's all found in those sports-specific videos. League builds, also very exciting, helping you create your league tailor-made how you want it with you. And there's a ton of league builds that you can choose from, and it walks you through step-by-step, option by option. You're going to create a nice constitution with these league builds. It's pretty for you and for your owners. You can't go wrong. BuildingTheFantasy.com, create, run, manage the best fantasy leagues possible with Jason Saltzman.
Hi guys, Real Life Peter Griffin here. You know what really grinds my gears? A poor constructed fantasy league. Continue to tune in, and thanks for watching BuildingTheFantasy.com.